How great would it be to get up close and personal with the beauty industry heroes we love and admire, and to ask them, how did you learn to do what you do? I'm Chris Baran, a hairstylist and educator for 40 plus years, and I'm inviting all our heroes to chat and share the secrets of their success. I'll tell you that if you are a salon owner, a leader, working in the salon business at all, you are going to want to listen to this week's podcast, because this gentleman he's been the founder of several successful businesses, and even most current one, which is and he's the co-founder of the High Performance Salon Academy. He takes literally salons under his wing, and he literally cranks up their success to a level 10 level 11 out of 10. His approach is what I can personally attest to is non-traditional. It is unconventional, but he's always the first kid on the block to know all about technology, to pass that on to business owners, how to make sure that they grow their businesses, and also in any teaching that he does, that is exponentially grown with the people taking his course. He helps salon owners and leaders grow and often increases their average ticket price, their pre-books, guest count, and take home income, catch this, by 20 to 40%. And I know you want to be a part of that as well. He runs 3 amazing destination trainings a year. He has seminars on salon owner evolution, revolution, plus rocker room trainings. He has been personally my coach, our business coach. He's been a friend, teacher, mentor for the last 14 years. He's done gigs and trainings for Redken, Matrix, L'Oreal, Nordstrom's, Baskin Robbins, U.S. Army, and Massage Envy, just to name a few. He's also the author of an amazing book called Profitable Salon Owners. So let's get into this week's head case, my friend, Mr. Jason Everett. Well, I don't even think it's right to call you Mr. Everett, because we've known each other for years. But
Mr. Everett.
Mr. Everett. Next time, fancy. I know he's, God willing, he was with us, we'd have him on. But Jason.
What up, buddy? You can call me Jason. I think we've earned the right to call each other by first names at this point.
It's absolutely a pleasure. And, for the people listening and watching, I mean, oftentimes I might be interviewing somebody that I'm meeting for the first time. I know of them, but as I stated in the intro that we're good buds as well. So you'll have to pardon some of the banter. But
we've broken laws together. We have broken paddles on behinds together. There's a lot of things that happen in our life that we'll just keep
some that
with.
Remain unsaid, especially about the paddles on the behind.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, we're not supposed to bring that up. Sorry about that. We witnessed it. We weren't a part of it.
There you go.
I don't know if that makes it worse or not.
Jason, I want I always loved your line, because when I've seen you on stage many times, me there in the audience, loving it. But I always love your line that you say, you have, what's your line about your energy and caffeine?
Oh, I have a bunch of them. And then, by the way, all of them are stolen. I want to just be really clear. Every caffeine line I have has been stolen. But my favorite one is I have so much energy that I make coffee nervous. Yeah. That's one of my favorite. So there's a couple that I've heard. Like, one is I have so much energy I make coffee nervous. The other one is my mom said I came caffeinated. That's the other one. But those are my 2 favorite caffeine lines. To
that point, though, and I can personally attest to this, you are always positive. You are, I'm going to say 99.99% of the time, because I don't think
I complain. Yeah. I can complain. Yeah. Talk to my wife. She knows I can complain.
Yeah.
But yes.
But you're always positive, and your energy is already always high. Were you always like that?
Yes. The very first award I ever got, like in business, was I got an award for the most enthusiastic. I think it was like, they give you those awards. They're like, what are we going to give Jason an award for? Everybody else is getting one. And they're like, no, he's enthusiastic. He claps a lot. And it wasn't because I was in the special class. It was just because I was friendly, and, I'm encouraging. I'm a natural encourager. Yeah. I love encouraging other people. I've had plenty of things that were not awesome in my life happen. And so I'm like, if I get to be a choice of like being encouraging or discouraging, or can I be happy or can I be sad? I just choose happy every single time. And it doesn't mean I'm always there. I just have a lot of things set up in my life to make sure that I ensure that's how I play, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but that's interesting too, because I wish I could say the same thing as you, but I am a bit of a worrywart, and you've often talked me off the ledge. But how do you find, like, I always think that is a mindset. It's a mindset choice, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I know that you've helped me with that through Little Voice Mastery, which I went through with you, and you really helped me to swing that around, because half of the time the crap that we think about that's going to happen never really does ever happen. But we spend so much space in our brain, energy in our heart, worry, that it's all useless half of the time.
I mean, there's not much that will be added to your life by spending time worrying. And I probably, to a fault, live in that space of, and I appreciate your observation on that, Chris. I mean, we know each other a long time, but it is one of those things where, like, when people come to me and they're like, well, I'm worried about this, and what if this? And I hear the, like, what ifs.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I don't understand, by playing out all the what ifs, what we're gonna gain from that. And I think a lot of people feel like, well, I'll be better prepared. And this might be another, like, secret thing that we're already talking about things I don't talk about very often. So good job. What I was gonna say is, I try not to go down the, like, what if path as often as possible. Like, I don't like to live there, because I just think that there's so many better things for us to live in, that like, if you're going to be in the what if land, why don't you imagine all the what if good scenarios? You're going to imagine all the what if bad scenarios. And
what
so I really limit the amount of time that I live in, like, reflection. And I'm around a lot of really incredible individuals that are just really power players. And what I find is that almost all of them, and I'd like to include myself in that, is they live with this, like, no regrets. Let's just keep going. Every experience is a gift. So when nothing is really good or bad, it can all be good.
Yeah.
Right? Like, even the worst thing that can happen to you could be the best thing that happened if you choose to frame it right. And so I work a lot on how do I frame things right in my own reality.
Okay, you're going to catch, everybody listening and watching right now is going to catch a little bit more about me, but I love humor, and when I get a chance, I love watching what Steve Harvey, the celebrity. The Celebrity Challenge, what he does on this TV program. Yeah,
celebrity stuff.
And I was watching it, a little bit of it today, and I watched about 15 or 20 minutes of it, and they had one gentleman that came on was in a wheelchair, and they had the queer eye for the straight guy and the queer eye next gen or whatever it was. And this was part of this guy that was on, it was like Sesame Street. One of these things is not like the other. And they had the new gen queer eye for straight guy. And then they had one guy, I was going, man, is a guy ever short? And I realized, he was sitting down. I went, why is he sitting? And they went over to him, and he was in a wheelchair. Yeah. And he said something that it almost made me slide off the chair. And I've got a big ass comfy couch, and that makes a lot. But he said that those guys changed his life, because they said to him, you have to forgive that guy that shot you before you can move forward.
Yeah, 100%.
And that was there, and Steve Harvey gave him a big high five, and it was really powerful. And then I just about missed it, but he asked another question, and he said, well, what did you do? And he said, well, I went up to him and thanked him. And so going up to somebody that shoots you and to have the mindset shift that you can do it. And here's what he said. He said, why did you thank him? And he said, because I wouldn't be the person that I am today
without that happening.
Without that happening, because he says now, and he set it up before, he was a motivational speaker, has a business, et cetera, and that's not who he was before. But that thing that happened that we all would seem devastated over turned his life, and he immediately became this different person. I wouldn't say immediately. I'm sure there was a shift, but he's now a different person.
That was the point of difference. That was the point of difference. And Chris, I have gotten in so many arguments in the best possible way with people, and I don't believe you can change people through arguing. So I don't mean like I initiated an argument, but people argue with me about why I could say something is a really good experience. And like, I'm like the ultimate PR spin guy when it comes to like issues and trauma and things like that. And this might sound crazy, but I truly believe, and this is regardless of religion or context or anything like that, I just think that I was placed on this earth to do something what I potentially think is great. And I don't mean like I'm going to, save a bunch of people from a burning building or something and like I'm some hero. I just mean, what if one day I was put here on this planet to have a conversation with somebody one day that changes their life, and the next day I get hit by a bus? Would I be okay with that? Like, I had to decide, and I don't know when I didn't have like a moment, like a 19, whatever. Like, it wasn't like that. I just I have always had this idea that like, what if I grab somebody's arm and they prevent them from walking out in the street and they don't get hit by a bus, and then I turn around and get hit by a bus? Would I be okay if that was my entire life's purpose was for that one moment? Would I be okay with that? And in my mind, I was like, I would absolutely be okay with that, because that's filling an amazing purpose. What if that's the only reason for me to be here? And so what that started out for me, and this is part of like the general observation I'll get into on the arguing part with people, is that, well, if I'm hoping that at some point I can do something great, and it could be small, it could be big, it could be one person, it could be that one thing, or maybe it's just like having a coffee conversation and it's a normal conversation, but that one thing I say changes that person's life forever. And they don't even realize it for like 20 years down the road, but I still get hit by a bus the next day. And I never got to find out that one conversation changed their life and blah, 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 blah. What if I intentionally went on a quest to be that good to other people? What if I intentionally said, how can I have more conversations that potentially would change the trajectory of their entire lives? And that's what got me into doing what I do today, because every day, and this literally just happened today, I'll explain it. It was an event that I went to, is that if I go forward and try and find more of those opportunities, and I show up at the best version of myself humanly possible every single time I'm with somebody, what if that conversation changes their life? And what if it doesn't? It's fine if it doesn't. It's totally fine. But if I go forward with that intention, knowing that I could get hit by a bus tomorrow, and maybe this is that one conversation, how much different would my life be? And what I realize is, like, as long as I'm still breathing every single day and I get to wake up, take a breath of air and see the sunshine the next day, I get more opportunities to do that.
Yeah.
And so that when people are like, why are you so happy all the time? Or like, why are you so friendly? Or why do you have so much energy? I'm like, because I get to do it again today. I get to do it again. I get to do it again. Like, today wasn't the day. And so literally this person the other day messaged me. I just did a video about it. She said, hey, I saw you on stage back in 2016 and you changed my life. Like, I was in the room. There was 800 people in this room. I have no idea who this person is. She said, she was in the room with me. She said, you said some things that just changed my life. Most incredible class I've ever been to. Thank you so much. And I'd never heard from her until just this last week.
Yeah.
And she's coming out to one of the classes that I'm doing. And I was like, that's it, man. That's what I'm about every day, is like that one life that can change. And I genuinely am looking for those moments. And I don't mind if there's 800 people there and it was only for her. It's fine.
Yeah.
I'm good. It just needs to be that one. And that would make my life worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I find that's the thing, that there's so many people, and it could be just a salon owner that helped somebody get somewhere in their career. That person never really did say anything. But
most
years
people don't say
and years later, they come back and say something that they made them who they are today. You know?
Well, and this is the thing, right? So I mentioned, I forgot to answer the question, which was about arguing real quick. I just want to make sure I throw that in there, is that people argue with me because they're like, Jason, there's too many terrible things that happen in this world. They all can't be good. And I was like, well, maybe, and again, this is getting pretty deep here, but like, maybe you've lost a child. Maybe you've been abused. Maybe you've had, maybe you've broke your back. Like, but maybe by you breaking your back, it impacted somebody else's life, and it created an entire turnaround for that other person that you've impacted. Maybe through that abuse, you decide that you're going to help other people for the rest of your life because of that. Like, I think it's hard. I think the realization for so many people that I hope they get in their lifetime is whatever happened to them that was traumatic and painful and you think was the worst moment was actually your opportunity to become your best self. Like, if you can get to that point, and again, I think that to your point on like, thanking the gunman who shot you, that, put you in a wheelchair. I think when you can get to that point when you can realize that your weakest moment might have been your best opportunity to become the best version of yourself, that is such an at-cause sort of reality and situation. It's really profound and powerful, and I think that's the most empowered you can be. Otherwise, you're just a victim of everything happening to you, and you think the world is just doing something to you, and you have no power over it. Yeah. So that's why I argue with people, is they're like, no, not everything can be for good reasons. And I'm like, well, what's the alternative? I just get mad at the world, and like, I can't change the world. That's not my job.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I can't change what happens to people, but I can change how I feel or what I do with what happens to people.
Yeah. You can use it like a springboard or a jumping off point, right?
100%.
Yeah. So that with that, I mean, I know what, just so the audience knows the circumstance that we met is it was at a training that a mutual friend, coach, teacher, friend, Blair Singer was doing, and he said he wanted us to sign up for this Little Voice Mastery, and I remember, and obviously you were my coach, and I think the first time that we met was we were having, I don't know what it was, Mexican food at a restaurant, and it was the
Bavarian restaurant.
Oh, it was the Bavarian restaurant. It was Mexican Bavarian.
Mexican Bavarian, very similar, almost identical flavor profiles.
Yeah.
It was the Bavarian restaurant. That's why I was saying when people were running around with the paddles, slapping people.
Oh,
not
right.
Us. That's what that was. That's why it wasn't us. They were like, "Do you want us to slap you on the butt and take a shot?" And we were both like, "No, we don't. I'm fine." It was totally fine. Just walk right away from that one. That was it. Bavarian. I remember.
But it was funny, because I think I can't remember if Blair was there as well, but you were there.
I think so. Yeah.
I think Sam Villa, myself, I think Rita was there.
There's a bunch of people.
Wife.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had a nice big table full. And then I think it was almost the next week or two later.
Within a couple weeks.
Yeah. I was jumping on with you on there. And so we've kind of connected ever since then. So what is it? What is it? And because I think it's an amazing thing to talk about right now, because we're just talking about mindset and how you can use things that are good and or bad that happen to you as that springboard. Sure. And you certainly did that with me and with our company literally in 6 weeks. So, but what is what's the gist? Why is Little Voice Mastery so important to people?
Yeah, and for those who don't know, a mentor of mine, Blair Singer, that we were just talking about, he wrote a book called Little Voice Mastery. He developed a program called Little Voice Mastery, which is a 6-week one-on-one program. And actually, that was in the earlier phase. That was like the first year that thing was rolled out. Yep. You were one of the first, 20 people to go through it or something maybe. And I had done a demo, and then I had taken a whole group through. And that still, to this day, is one of the most powerful programs that we run through our company. We have 20 people a quarter go through that program, and we're the largest provider of Little Voice Mastery coaching through our company of anybody in the world is our company. And it's profound. It's an amazing program. But why does it work? Because unlike how most programs work where people tell you what to do, this is the only program of its type that exists where it's literally 150 questions that get asked of you every week.
Yeah.
And all you're doing is sorting out your own mind. And I was just telling somebody this earlier. I said, everybody's trying to grow a garden. I grew up on a farm, and when you grow a garden, you plant your regular plants in there, but then lo and behold, all these weeds grow too. And you have to reach in there and pull out all those weeds while you're like, this is not a plant I want. And you rip it out. This is not a plant I want. Rip it out. And you're like, leave the beanstalk or whatever, or the pumpkin or whatever it's going to be. Leave that there. And so what happens is, just like that garden, if you don't tend it, the weeds will choke out the plants that you want to grow there, and they won't grow as big, and they won't be as prolific, and they won't all those things. So Little Voice Mastery, by asking these questions, is like weeding the garden. You're like, did you want that there? Yes or no? Did you want that there? Yes or no? Because when you ask those questions, you're like, hey, what did you think about this? You're like, oh man, I have these hiccups with money, or I have these hiccups in relationships, or I have all this. You're like, well, what's that from? And you're like, well, it was when I was 8 years old. My parents said this to me one time, and I wrote a rule in my life that's been playing out till now when I'm 40, 50, 60 years old. And so you remove all those weeds, and all of a sudden people are like, oh my God, I can finally become who I've always been trying to be now that the weeds are gone.
Yeah.
That helps.
Yeah, and and I just want to poke at this because this was part of my pain before I took it. And when I say pain, I mean the questions I was asking myself. Because I kept thinking, okay, if I'm taking this Little Voice Mastery course, what kind of a wound is this stripping open? Am I going to have to tell stuff? Am I going to have to?
What am I breaking open and confessing to? Yeah. All this stuff.
Yeah.
Sure, it's scary.
But it really isn't that at all. It's answering questions that are posed to you that, because obviously you didn't know what I wanted. You didn't know what I needed.
I literally have to ask you. I say,
exactly.
Hey Chris, what is it that you want to have?
Yeah.
That's one of the questions. And you're like, I want this and this and this. And I go, great. What would stop you from getting that? What else would stop you? What else would? And I ask you all these questions, and by the end of it, you're like, "Holy shit, I'm really smart."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Yeah, I know. I didn't." But here's the thing: most people have to tell you what you need to do. Like right now, we're having a conversation. It's two-way.
Yeah.
I'm telling you stuff. You're telling me stuff. You're asking stuff, and I'm not asking stuff. But like, we're playing this back and forth game. When you do Little Voice Mastery, it's really clear that like my job is to ask questions to draw out the genius from you.
Yeah.
That's the whole point.
Yeah.
And you leave feeling smarter rather than leave feeling smaller or dumber.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I think that happened in so many courts, so many classes, coaching sessions, one-on-ones, is it's more that you're the problem rather than
where people are like, let me show you how to fix your problem. Yeah, but notice the language. Let me show you how to fix your problem.
Yes.
See, most people, when they start to learn things, can't wait to tell you how to fix your problems.
Yeah.
I always know when I'm dealing with somebody who should never be a public speaker, when they tell me, I have an amazing story to tell everybody. Because I went through this trauma and drama. And by the way, it's very close, but it's 1 degree off.
Yeah.
They go, I went through this trauma, I was in a wheelchair, whatever the thing is. And it's not on wheelchair people, but I'm just saying like they went through something and then they say, I need to share my story with the world. And I go, if that's why you want to share it, don't share it.
Yeah, that's right.
You can't. So what I tell people is like, look, like if you have an amazing story, I want to know how your story potentially serves people in a way that gives them new ahas, insights, etc. And if you came to me and said, man, I have some really helpful things I think could really serve the world if I could just help people see how great they could become.
Yeah.
That person I can help on stage.
Yeah.
The person that says, I need to tell my story, they still need some counseling sessions, man. Like go talk to a psych. Like people don't pay to come and hear your story. They pay and come because your story helps them see something different in themselves they've never seen before. Yeah. And so it's a different focus, right? It's got to be about the learner versus about the experiencer. And yes, of course, that's a real word, experiencer.
Yes.
But I was going to say, it's a Canadian, I think.
Well, I just looked it up in my thesaurus.
My thesaurus. But I was just going to say, I mean, it's like you really have to understand that it's not about you, it's about the audience. And if you're there to serve the audience, then you can tell stories to serve them, but it's not about telling your stories.
Yeah, there's a difference between telling your story and being a storyteller.
100%.
Because where you're telling a story and it taking you from their world into your world, and then they see how that story relates to them. Correct. And if you can do it, I can do it. The other thing that I loved, that I think was so successful about the accountability, and I'm gonna say a bad word here, so I want to forewarn everybody.
So dirty.
That I can remember.
Trigger warning.
I remember. I'll actually calm it down, and
neuter it.
Every time that I said, "Well, here's what I'm going to do," and then Jason, you'd say to me, "Okay, when are you going to do it?" I'd say, "Well." Let's see. I'd go to my calendar and I'd say, you could do it. I can do that in 2 weeks. And he said, you would say to me, well, why 2 weeks? Why can't you do this tomorrow? And every time I would say, fuchsia you. Jason.
Fuchsia. Fruka-tuki.
Yeah. And the point is I did it the next day. It all came together really well. And the point is it's the accountability that when you have a coach that holds you accountable, and builds you up. You can see what your vision is, but it's that fear of, well, what if I phone those people up and you just told me to do, and they say no? Well, I'll put that off my feelings off for 2 weeks, but it didn't help. And you got me to do it right away, as you do with everybody.
Well, here's the thing. By the way, I'm the worst student. Like I was the worst student in school. I am the one that wants to skate out of accountability worse than anybody else. And again, the only reason why I have any credibility to hold people accountable is because I've learned some techniques that hold me accountable and hold other people accountable. And it's so funny. I hate to say I was checking a text when I was talking to you, but I got like blown up by a text message. I looked over at it and it was somebody giving an excuse that they had been told to do. And it was funny because I just literally coached on this earlier today, is that somebody said, well, I have a call with somebody and they were supposed to get something done and they probably didn't get it done. And I said, well, look, you're a Little Voice Mastery coach. Just ask them, how would they handle it if they were coaching somebody for Little Voice Mastery? And it's funny because I got another excuse that's even bigger than the one that was there. And I'm like, hilarious. Most people are so good at giving excuses, they actually rule something that I call the excuse auction. And the excuse auction is basically we give higher value excuses until they're accepted by others. So like if I'm like, oh, sorry, I'm late to your house, Chris, I'll be there as soon as I can. You might be really nice and be like, no problem, Jason, like no big deal. But what if I do it over and over and over again? At some point you're like, screw you, Jason. Like I don't care what's going on. I'm like, oh no, sorry, Chris, there was an accident on the freeway. You're like, I don't care. Be here on time. Like I paid you or whatever it was, right? Yeah. And then I might go, oh, there's a really bad accident where all these people got hurt and blah, blah, blah. And okay, now I've tugged on your heartstrings. You might go, okay, don't worry about it. But like at some point, I'm going to hit a line with you. It's unacceptable.
Yeah.
And you're like, look, bro, you said you're going to do this many times. It's unacceptable. Some people have a different line. And so what most people do is we do this subconsciously, is we're feeling out what that line is with people. And if you can move that line so tight that nobody can get away with anything, you create accountability.
Yeah. Yeah. And that often just is a simple question, isn't it? But it's also to help people with their patterns.
One other thing I want to throw out too, Chris, is that this is really important. I don't hold people accountable to my rules for them. I hold them accountable to their rules for themselves. This is very different. Most people would say, hey, Chris, I want you to do that by Friday. And Chris reluctantly agrees to my rule. And then on Friday, I go, hey, Chris, did you get that done? You're like, no, I didn't. Well, why? Because honestly, if we really just said it, you're like, because I didn't want your effing rule.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to do it. And I agreed to it because you forced me and blah, 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 blah. But if I go, Chris, when can you get that done by? And you go, by Friday. And I go, great. So you're committing to yourself, but out loud to me, that you'll get that done by Friday. Yes. Do I have permission to hold you accountable to that? Yes. Now, if you don't do it by Friday, I'm like, hey, Chris, you made a commitment to yourself. You'd get this done by Friday. Now, I didn't say Friday. You said Friday. So where else does that happen, buddy, where you let yourself off the hook and you're like, damn you! Because that's it. That's the crux. All I'm trying to get you to do is not be more accountable, but to be more responsible.
Right.
If I can help you be more responsible for that area of your life, and really, let me circle this whole thing back. This responsibility thing about saying, hey, great things happen in your life. When something like, somebody shoots you and you're in a wheelchair and whatever, you're taking responsibility for that and saying, look, I'm going to take that and turn it into something great.
Yeah.
I'm going to take the bad thing and turn it into something great. I just think that's taking hyper responsibility. And my whole life is about assuming more responsibility for things I think I can and cannot control.
Yeah. Yeah. Profound. So you've coached. I mean, it's before you really got into the hair game. Yeah. You were working with tons of other people. Before,
I don't do any hair. Don't ever think I can cut your hair. But the hair game of working with salon owners. Yes, that game.
So I mean, I'm going to quote this. Well, first of all, I wanted your book, and in the first line of your book, it says, okay, hold it. No, it's what is beyond the whites. Oh, people often ask me how I picked the hair industry to work in.
Yeah.
So what's your answer to that? I mean, I'm reading it here. I know what it is.
I was like, did I not answer it in the book? I'm pretty sure I did. I was like, Jesus, what a cliffhanger I left on there. Wow, people often ask me.
And that was at the beginning.
By chapter 12, I answer it.
Yeah.
So I always say I'm an adopted family member of the salon and spa industry. Like, I really am. I think twofold, man. I've always been at some level, a performing artist. And I know you're a performing artist. I've seen you rock crazy venues and like, dude, you are a performer at the core. Like you're in hair, but you give an amazing performance. That's what makes your artistry beautiful, right? So I've always been a performance artist since I was really little. Like my parents gave me camcorders and all this stuff, and we were putting on shows since I could stand up, 2, 3 years old. I'm like, Mom, watch this show. Mom, watch that show, right? And so I was putting on shows. So I'd always figure out ways to put on shows. I was in band, I was in choir, I was in theater, I was anything that was performance related, I was in there. And I was a lead singer in a band. I was what other thing? I used to do improv, sketch comedy, like I was on stages and performing all the time. One of the biggest problems with performers is that they very often undervalue themselves because they get a high out of performing.
Yeah.
Familiar? Mm-hmm. So you're like, whoa, this like juices me up. I love performing. It's totally good. So very often, and this is why when you ask a band, like, how much do you charge to come, play at my gig? They're like, I don't care. I just want to do your gig. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter. They're like, I just want to do it because I'm going to be on stage in front of 10,000 people. I love it, right? So people have a hard time assessing their value. So performers often undervalue themselves. And in the salon and spa industry, hairdressers or stylists or massage therapists on some level are performers. In one-on-one settings with people, they perform, they work amazing magic with people, and they feel bad about charging. They do it for free if they could. Like if they just were independently wealthy, they'd probably still do it because they just love being around people. And so the salon and spa industry and I got along really, really well because I realized these people are very often undervalued, just being very honest, by society. It's like you say you own a salon and they go, that's cute. Like what's your spouse do? They must really make the money. And you're like, screw you. I run a $7 million salon, or whatever it is. Yeah. Or I make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. Like this industry is so incredible. It's often seen as a second-class citizen. And so two things happen. One is I'm very familiar with performers who undervalue themselves because I've been that person.
Yeah.
And when I started meeting salon spa industry people, I was like, oh, these are my people. Now, not only are they the most incredibly fun people on planet Earth, like yourself and everybody else, but they undervalue themselves, and I have solutions to fix that. Like I can help people start charging their worth. I remember when we were working together, you were like, I don't know, I'm not going to charge them for that. And I'm like, okay, Chris, let's figure this out. Because again, you're a consummate giver, like everybody else in the salon spa space, and all I want you to do is be in fair exchange. I don't need you to gouge people, but I want you to see your worth, charge your worth, and it's been able to create, not only great value for the people you work with, but like if you can't charge your worth, you won't serve very long. You have to be able to charge in order to serve longer. So that the more you charge is actually a gift for other people, and people don't realize that.
Yeah, and so that alone was a mouthful. And inside this,
and you are not the only person who can say a lot with a little bit of information, brother. That's all I'm saying. We can have a competition on that one.
Well, people have watched many of these. Have often heard me say I've been introduced as the person that can. This is, by the way, this is Chris Baran. He is the person that can often say in 10 words what other people can say in one.
Yes.
In this book, and I know from a fact of being at your destination trainings and meeting all the people that you've changed the lives for, and I'm going to use a word here that with my tongue in my cheek. Okay, this is not who he is, but when you have a community that almost becomes cult-like because you change their way of thinking, they become more prosperous. They feel more ingrained in what they do, and they're actually reaping the awards of what they get. And they're actually, almost everybody that I talk to in there says, for once in my bloody life, I'm making money.
Yeah,
I have a great business. I don't have to work behind the chair all the time. So, like with that in mind, and you have like a kind of your 4-step mantra. I know it originally started as your genius model. That's a whole nother program. Yeah. But you have a 4-step concept for the salons.
Yeah.
What can you explain just a little bit briefly of what that is so that people understand it?
Yeah, well, just in case there was any confusion, not a cult leader, just to clarify, in case that was any question.
There was no Kool-Aid. There was none of that there.
No Kool-Aid, nothing weird. Yeah. But I want to address that for just a second, is I think, and I'll give you the 4-step mantra, but the idea is that people don't know what to do when, like, I really do not take it lightly that people say, like, I've changed their lives. Like, it's still a weird thing for me to hear that, to be really honest. It trips me out every time. It's like, yes, I know I'm going on a quest to a certain level to do that, but every time somebody says it to me, it's brand new. Yeah. I want to just clarify on that, because it's like, I don't expect to, but if I do, great. Okay. And so when people come and spend time with me or read, like, I've had people just read the book. They never even met me. They just read the book and they're like, Jason, you helped me add $50,000 worth of profit in my business. And I'm like, amazing. Like that's incredible. And something weird happens when, like, imagine, Chris, if I was like your fairy godmother and I was just running around with a magic wand.
That's an image in my brain that I'm gonna do my etch.
Hello, Christopher. I'm
gonna do my etch-a-sketch on this. Hold on. I'm gonna get rid of that image in my brain.
No, keep it in there. So I'm your fairy godmother, and every time we hang out together, I just bop you on the head, and you reach in your pocket and you pull out cash.
Yeah.
how much would you want to hang out with me?
Absolutely.
All the time, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of a weird thing. Like I had somebody else, it's a stolen term, called profitable addiction.
Yeah.
And I heard that and I was like, that's good. And now profitable addiction should be, if we hang out together and it's profitable, I hope you get addicted to coming back because I help everybody around me make more money, right? If you could say that's the case. Now, is that every single human being on earth? No. Is it a lot of people? It is. Okay. And so I like to, when we create the things that we do inside the academy with my partner Doug and the rest of our crew, is that we just show people easier ways to make money that they've made complicated, right? They do things harder than they need to. And we're like, hey, did you know you could just do this and make more money? And people go, shut your mouth.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's literally like you're on a giant, like think of it this way. You're on a giant quest and you've gotten on the back of a horse, or you were going to walk. And I go, hey, Chris, there's this thing called an airplane. You're like, shut your mouth. Shut your mouth. There's an airplane? Yeah, you can be there in 2 hours, not 7 weeks. You're like, no way. And I'm like, yeah, way, for real. Let me just show you the way to this airplane. And so I show you some new technology, some new tools, some new thing. And it's just like, honestly, man, most salon owners, because they're behind the chair so much, are so back in their technology and what they're doing, and they're just not up to date on materials. I become the curator of recent materials. And then the 4 categories we talk about is attracting, keeping, delivering, and growth. So attract, keep, deliver, growth, or you could also say wealth. That's one way to talk about it. So attracting. How do you find the right people to work in your business? And how do you find the right people to come in and be patrons in your business? And yes, you need to curate both of those. The people you want to work with as clients and the people you want to work with as staff. So how do you attract those? Then keep them. How do you keep the right people on your team as staff members? How do you keep the right people as guests? Because that will make you profitable for long term. Then also, how do you deliver? How do you deliver world-class content to your guests? And how do you deliver in a world-class way that makes your staff want to stay and work with you for the rest of their life because they just keep growing? And then finally, how do you unlock wealth? How do you unlock growth in a way that you get your time back, you get more money in your pocket, and all of a sudden you're a better human being?
Yeah.
I decided a long time ago, I don't want to be in personal development unless your life gets better. If you go to a personal development conference and you decide to get divorced and exile your children and all that stuff, no thank you.
Yeah.
But if you go to a conference and all of a sudden you have better relationships with your children, better relationships with your spouse, better relationships with money, better relationships with your friends, and you're like, my life is actually getting way better. I hope that becomes a profitable addiction, and that's the whole point.
Yeah.
And in things like the book, for $20, go learn a ton of it, or send me a message, and I'll DM you the dang book for free. I'll send you a free PDF because I'm out to change people's lives and help them see what they're capable of, and I'm more than happy to do that at every turn because I don't know what that moment is going to be in my life where I impact somebody in a great way that was put me on this planet. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, inside there, I think it's the simplest of formula. And I think that if people say, well, all I have to do is do those 4 things. But the reality is, and I'm going to speak not for everybody listening, not everybody watching out there, but just for me when I was behind the chair. And I ended up dumping everything in a standard thing that, how much money did you make last year? And how much money, what did you take out in, I remember you asking me this question even recently, just about, are you paying yourself a wage that you would have to pay somebody else if
could you pay somebody to do the job?
If you had to pay somebody to do a job. And most people, myself included, when I was in hair, and even in starting running the businesses that I own now, I did that, I'm bowing out, thinking it was a mic drop, and it was actually more of a stab when I said, we're keeping all the money in the business so we can grow the business.
Yeah. Well, it's a delusion. It's a delusion that people have. It's like there is a level of growth, but you just like with budgeting or anything else, you want to budget your growth. And that sounds weird, but a lot of people don't understand that concept. Is that I've met people who have multi-million-dollar businesses that have never taken money out of it. And I'm like, the problem is your business, if you never take money out of it, will never pay you money.
Yeah.
So you've got to learn how to be disciplined enough. At the very beginning stage, you probably can't take anything out. But very quickly, you have to start removing money from the business. Otherwise, the business will just remove your soul. Like you have to be paid in exchange, right? It's like people who run a business that don't pay themselves a profit and don't pay themselves a reasonable owner salary. They don't have a business, they have a hobby.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, it's cool if you want to have a hobby. I mean, there's plenty of things that I do that I don't make $1 from because I just love to do them. When I go surfing, I don't make $1 from surfing. It costs me a lot of money to fire up the boat and put gas in it and take my friends out and make all the payments on everything. But I like doing it just for giggles.
Yeah.
Right? And that's a hobby. It costs me money.
Yeah.
But if in order for me to go to work, like people would get, if they were an employee they'd be pissed if they didn't get a paycheck.
Yeah.
So why aren't you pissed if you're not taking a profit as a salon owner?
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Whether it's any business owner, just salon owners have to be extra guilty on this one because they are so big servant-minded people that they serve people so much that it affects their pocketbook, and then they don't have enough energy, and their energy gets run down, and they're like 30 years into it, and they're like, why don't I like going to work anymore? And I'm like, because you've never paid yourself properly, and you're out of exchange with yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I got one of my business partners just send me this note on a course that they were taking, and I'm going to get some of the figures wrong, so this is not absolute science, but it was that something like, it was like, I think 53% of salon owners want to get out from working at the chair, but they have to stay in it because they're the ones generating the revenue.
Yeah. So there is a point, and this is really interesting, Chris. There is a point, like if you're going to start a business, you might start out behind the chair, and that's a common way to do it. Is like you start out behind the chair, you bring some other people in. There's a turning point, and we actually have a formula for what point that is inside your business. We have a whole roadmap that says like, when do you switch from being behind the chair, then when do you go to 50%, and when do you move forward? At what level do you need to do those things? And most people sail right through that level and never transition out. And then they're a much larger business, and they're still stuck behind the chair. I have people who do, can you believe this? I have people, salon owners, that earn $500,000 behind the chair every year.
Wow.
Behind the chair. They're crazy. They have like, 100 associates. Not really. They have 4 or 5 associates, and they're constantly doing all this stuff. They make $500,000 a year behind the chair, and they're so stuck because they're like, I don't know how to get out behind this. Well, who else is going to pay me $500,000? This is going to happen. And it's wild, but we've been working with them over time, and they're starting to wean down their time. I mean, even if you're only making $100,000 or $200,000 behind the chair every year, you're like, geez, there's no way my business could replace that income.
Yeah.
But you start by doing it in small sections, because at the end of the day, and I heard this the other day, I'll share it with you because it's appropriate for this moment, is I heard a friend of mine, I think you know him too, Dan Martell. He wrote just recently a book called Buy Back Your Time. Dan Martell said something the other day, and I'm like, I love when Dan Martell coaches me on TikTok. It's free. I love it. It's my favorite thing. Anyway, he said, if you want to become rich, you must learn to be lazy. And if you want to become wealthy, you must learn to be incompetent.
Let that sink in.
I know, right? Take a second for that bad boy. That's
so. What you said was, what was that again? If you want to be rich,
become lazy.
Yeah.
But if you want to be wealthy, you must learn to become incompetent. Here's what I mean. If you're a salon owner and you're working behind the chair, and you finally escape from behind the chair, you've gotten out from behind the chair, and then you have 2 stylists that call in sick that day, or quit and walk out and leave you, and you have a whole book of business ready to go for that day that they're supposed to come in and do it. If you're competent as a salon owner and as a stylist, you'll jump in and do all that hair that day, and you'll save yourself.
Yeah.
You'll jump back in, you'll get right back into the trap you've always been in. If you're incompetent, you will hire somebody else and you don't know how to do hair, you'll solve the problem differently.
Yeah.
See, the problem for so many people, and like, shame on you for being competent.
Yeah.
Right? You know how to do things. And Chris, I hope this is hitting you too. We're having our private coaching session right now, right?
I'm hoping that all the people that are listening can't see me blushing. So
yeah. But dude, I mean, this is where I was coaching you or coaching anybody else, so the people just listen for free. I don't care. I just want you to hear it. It was super powerful. He gave it to me on TikTok, right? So I want you to hear this, is that, so many people, you got to be lazy, meaning you got to start hiring other people to do the work you were doing. That's quote unquote seen as lazy, right? Then if you want to be really good and really successful, you got to be so incompetent you can't even step in to do the job. Do you think Elon Musk is running around actually designing every element of that rocket ships?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Now, he might be changing out the logo over at Twitter on his own, but like some of those things he's not doing by himself. Like there are so many things in most, like same thing with Jeff Bezos and everybody else. There are so many things in their businesses that they are incompetent of doing.
Yeah.
They are just designed to be the orchestrator of what's going on. They're just designed to find the right people. That's called wealth. And so many salon owners and so many small business owners, myself, my parents, everybody else I know included, is we're too competent for our own good, which sucks us back into the operations of the business.
Yeah. Wow.
I know, right? It was 20 seconds, changed my life. Like that.
Yeah.
And by the way, all I do, Chris, is I learn something and I turn around and I teach it to somebody else because it was impactful for me.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's my job, man, is learn something good, tell other people about it.
This episode is sponsored by the Salon Associate Accelerator from trainersplaybook.com. Are you struggling with the time and cost of associate training? Do you feel like your salon is running you? We'll get your associates on the floor, all with 90% less time from you, so you can get back to building your business. Get them world-class design, finishing, color, and client care skills they'll use every day for the rest of their career, while you focus on realizing your vision. Go to trainersplaybook.com and get the Salon Associate Accelerator. And now, back to the show. I remember Blair telling the story about John Maxwell and about being leadership. And he said, your job, you're in the business of creating more jobs. You're not in the business of doing the work.
That's right.
And you have to, leaders create more leaders. They don't do the work. So
yeah. Mike Michalowicz says that actually in his book. He said, how dare you steal jobs from other people by you doing them yourself?
Yeah.
Mike Michalowicz.
Yeah.
Right? But he said, you're stealing jobs from people that work on your team when you jump in to do it. You're stealing jobs from a stylist who needs to feed their family at home. You're stealing jobs from the executive assistant, or you're stealing jobs from that virtual assistant who can help you do with marketing, or like somewhere in your town, there's 30 people that need work right now, and you're stealing their jobs because you're selfishly doing it.
Now, you hit something, because I have to give a bit of context to this. So we have our community page, which is a private page that people go onto called Salon Team Training. People jump on it, and they just have to ask a question.
Jump on it.
Yeah, and they have to ask a question. And one of the number one questions there is I'm paraphrasing 7 out of 10 of the questions that everybody asks. And they come down to, how do I get people to work because they don't want to work now? How do I get people to come and work for me? How do I get people to stay working for me? Is part of that all in your 4-step progress? Especially when keep clients. Let's keep clients, but you have to keep your staff.
Let's keep clients, keep staff. I mean, it's attracting staff. It's all those things. I mean, I think everything that you just mentioned is stuff that we cover. And that's why I think, Chris, we've had such good alignment over the years, right? Is we do have crossover between what we do. But while you're good at getting the associates trained, we're good at training the business owner. We have a slightly different client inside the same micro subset, right? But yeah, I mean, I would say that's a big part of how we operate is by being able to give people those tools, because again, it's not your fault, man. Like most of you that run salons, if you're watching this, you're a salon owner, you've not been trained on how to run a salon. You've been trained kind of on how not to run a salon by watching the last salon owner who did a terrible job, and you're like, I can do better than them. I should probably open my own salon.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or and by the way, this was profound. Full credit to Danielle Cherwick on this. She kicked my butt last week. She, for the first time, besides Doug and I don't know if you know this, Chris, you probably have no clue. This last Monday was the first time we ever let one of our clients run one of our biggest training sessions. And Danielle Cherwick, who's one of our clients, she ran it, and I was doing a session with her, and we were talking about how to set pricing for your salon. And I said, well, I was brainstorming with her, and I said, you probably want to check out all the other salons in the area and see what they're charging. And she was like, no, don't do that. She's like, the biggest mistake salons make is they try to copy other people. And the thing that I see in our Facebook group, which since you plugged yours, I'll plug mine, Profitable Salon in our Facebook group. Sorry, man.
There's a ticker, people listening, there's a ticker tape going across the bottom. Absolutely unplanned.
Definitely not competitive at all.
Yeah.
Anyway, but what I was going to say is the number one question we get asked is, can you send me your pricing structure? Can you send me your manual? Can you send me your handbook? How do you, and they just want to copy. And we don't provide cookie cutter solutions at all, because the unique point of difference for what we do in our academy is we tell people all the time, if you understand how to create it from scratch and you don't copy it, you'll be rich for the rest of your life. And so many people, and some of you saying this, they said, not in our group, in Profitable Salon Owner Facebook group. Sorry.
Ticker tape
not in our
across the bottom again.
Not in our group, but in other people's groups, that's what everybody wants. Send me your handbook.
Yeah.
Send me your write-up process. Send me your response to a bad review. Send me this, because they think it's about copying, because most salon owners, and if you're listening to this and you're guilty of this, you just get to know that you're guilty. But the idea is that you've probably tried to copy everybody else, but here's the problem. This is what Danielle said that schooled me. She said, the problem is you're making a copy of a bad copy of a bad copy of a bad copy. Now, you and I are both old enough to remember copiers, right?
Yep,
Before Canva, we would do this really weird thing where we'd take a piece of paper with something printed on it, we'd cut it out, and then we'd stick it on another piece of paper, and then we'd like white out the edges or something, right? So then you put it on another copy machine and run a copy of a copy, and it would like start to degrade the quality. Well, here's the problem. Most salon owners have been copying of a copy of a copy for 100 freaking years.
Yeah.
So the pricing is terrible. The way in which they handle management is terrible. They've been copying a bad copy of a bad copy of a bad copy. And they're like, I don't know why it's not working, and I can't read the writing anymore.
Yeah.
Because just like when you're in elementary school and your teacher had made the same copy for the last 25 years, you can barely even make out the words anymore. You got a bad copy of a bad copy. So let me show you how to write it from scratch and have a fresh copy that you understand, that you made, that you created, and that'll change everything.
That suits you.
Yeah, that gets custom built for you, man.
Yeah.
Custom built.
Yeah.
Custom built.
You alluded to this before when we were talking about Doug, and Doug's an amazing individual.
He's a good dude.
Yeah. But, it's funny when I remember when the two of you kind of struck up together.
Yeah.
And so I know a little bit about this, and I like to ask
you were around
people.
Before Doug, BD.
I was
before Doug.
Yeah, whatever that's like a alphabet math question, and leave me out of that. But would you say, are you, as Jason Everett, are you better as a collaborator or as a soloist?
Oh, dude. Such a good question. Collaborator times a million.
Yeah.
Times a million. So I learned a long time ago, this is super, I'm revealing all my secrets of Jason now. I suck by myself. And by the way, I just have learned that like I'm a natural curator of people. Is that I'm pretty good at doing things on my own, but like if I'm just like, for example, if you told me to go work out by myself, I'd work out for 2 seconds and be like, this sucks.
Yeah.
I don't like this at all.
Nobody's watching. I can leave.
Where's the people? What's happening? And like my trainer at the gym, he's also named Jason. My trainer at the gym, like the reason why I like training with him is because I train with 4 other people at the same time. So he coaches me and 3 or 4 other people all at the same time. We're all working out together, like in this whole thing. He's running back and forth between all of us, watching us all coach. And every once in a while, and like, by the way, I pay a lot of money for sessions with him. And every once in a while, I'll have a session where like everybody else cancels and it's just me. And I'm like, well, this is stupid. Why am I even here? Nobody else even cares. And like, cause we're pushing each other and asking more of others. Like, it's like, running a marathon by myself sounds horrible.
Yeah.
Sounds horrible. But there's other people next to me. I'm like, yeah, let's go. Right. Because I love that. So I honestly think, Chris, because you knew me before my partner and not.
Yeah.
Bringing in a partner for me has always been one of the most helpful things to get the most amount of work out of me ever. Like group projects are where I shine. Even when we're working on stuff together, you give me some feedback, I get some feedback. I love that process. So collaborator 1,000.
Yeah, I find that, and there's another part I want to speak to on this, is that sometimes people want to collaborate, but they don't listen, and I don't know, maybe if that's their soloist, etc. But I don't want to. I'm not trying to put one into the other.
Yeah.
But what I am saying is that if you're collaborating, I'll give you this. I was dealing with an issue. We have. In one of our programs, somebody said, I have this problem. And he said, she said, I went into this program and they were doing this particular session and they were doing pros and cons of what was happening in the salon. And they broke them into groups. And the owner of the group said, I hate this exercise, because she saw that when people were saying, well, if we did this, the client would have a better experience, and she took it as a personal attack that you're crapping on what I started with a while back. And what happened was she said that some of the other groups that she went to prior said, well, here's some great ideas, but we'll tell you right now that the owner is going to hate this because she doesn't take criticism well.
Yeah. So I have a couple rules to fix that. Number 1, any solution must be good for the guest, good for the staff, and good for the owner. If it doesn't meet all 3 criteria, it's got to be thrown out. It has to be good for all 3. So if it's good for the guest, good for the staff, but the owner hates it, it's got to go. Period. Yeah. Like it can't be at the sacrifice of the owner, but at the benefit of the guest and the benefit of the stylist. It has to be beneficial for all 3. That's number 1. Number 2 is when you're talking about this idea around working with other people and helping them to onboard ideas, you have to start at neutral. Like everybody's got to be able to be a clean slate of ideas. Everybody's got to be able to be fresh, and you have to have an open mind. So in our academy, we say you have to be humble and you have to be hungry. Like if you're humble enough to take feedback and hungry enough to want to grow, like I can do a lot with you. But if you're not humble and you're not hungry, then I got nothing. Like if you don't want to do big things, then you're not going to like hanging out with me. I'm just going to scare you. And if you're not humble, you're never going to listen anyway. And I think that's such a thing about being humble and hungry is that when you're working with somebody, you got to ask, like, is everybody on this brainstorming team, are you humble and hungry? And I will say one of the biggest things I see get in the way when people collaborate with each other is ego.
Yeah.
Right. So when Kaylina, my ops manager, came on the team and she watched Doug and I, we say discuss things. Most people say argue in a great way. We argue really well. Okay. Because we always have differences of opinions. I'm like high energy crazy. He's like, what's up? Like he's super chill. I'm like California high energy. He's like Florida chill status, right? From the South. And the reason why I say argue, and we get along great. I don't mean to say argue like in a bad way. It's just we always have a difference of opinion. And what Kaylina said is she said, I've never seen two people talk to each other and disagree so much but leave their egos out. And she said, I think that's the magic. That was her assessment, not mine. But she said, I think that's the magic is you guys are able to have a conversation egoless. And don't get me wrong, every once in a while, egos get in the way for show.
Yeah.
But the idea is that, we can have really good conversations without ego involved. And for that salon owner who doesn't want to do it, she's using an old methodology of solution to fix a today problem. And you can't use, yesterday's mindset to fix today's problem. You have to use today's mindset to fix today's problem.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting because I find that sometimes that just the soloist, and I think you said it, is the ego gets in, and I tell you, I wrestle with that too. Sometimes I've created it, and then whatever that project is, that style, that look, and it's my baby, and you hold it, and I think that we all have that thing inside us. Is you just don't want to say bad things about the baby, but sometimes in order to make the baby grow, you have to make improvements. And I think that's where the hardest part for people is to be open to listen and listen without emotion attached to it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a big believer, like feedback is a breakfast of champions. Like I really do believe that. And I don't know if it was just because I've been on stage being critiqued almost my entire life. Like I've been on stages since I was 12 years old. And so I've been being critiqued and given feedback to, and like you can't stand on stage and get an ego check. Every instructor, every coach, every mentor that I've ever had, they just give me feedback to make me better. And I always, and by the way, I do have a rule about feedback that I don't know if it still applies to me, but I'll share it on this call or on this video, whatever we're doing, podcast. The idea is that I take feedback, but you have to be getting a better result than me in that area of your life. So it's a really interesting check, and I don't know if it serves me still. Somebody called it into question the other day, and I was like, I should probably reevaluate that and maybe see if there's anything different. But sometimes I'll get off stage and somebody will be like, hey, can I give you some quick feedback on your talk you just gave? And I'm like, I'm sorry, what now? And I don't mean to sound arrogant because I've been on some pretty big stages, but like if I'm getting feedback from somebody who's never been on stage, I just take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah,
and I just kind of go,
bye.
Thank you. And I put that in my little pocket. And if I don't want to take it back out again, I just said, thank you. You know what I mean? But there's people who would argue like, well, maybe that's that person that needed to give you that exact feedback, that exact moment. Why aren't you listening to it? Maybe. But I just look at it and I go, if somebody doesn't have better results than me in their relationships, I'm probably not going to listen to them. If they've been divorced 5 times, like, let me tell you, Jason, I'll never forget my old boss. He said, when I went to go get married, he's like, well, this will be at least your first wife. I'm like, great. Right? Like it's all those, don't get me wrong. I've been with my wife for 22 years. Like, I think we're doing just fine. And we have a no exit clause. Like we're doing great. But I don't take advice from the guy who's like, well, hope your marriage lasts more than 6 months, Yeah. And it's like, those are not the people you want to listen to. So try to find people who are better than you in certain areas. But also, there's one other caveat to that, because a lot of people, if I'm honest, what I would say people sometimes poke at me for is they're like, Jason, you've never run a salon. How could you possibly help me?
There you go.
Like that comes out, man.
Yeah.
Like people are like, Jason, you never run a salon before. And I'm like, no, don't get me wrong. My partner has, but why the hell, what? Who am I? I'm some dude who's never run a salon. How could I possibly be helpful? You have to look at the track record of the person that's coaching you too.
Yeah.
I have coached a couple thousand salons and helped people make hundreds of thousands of dollars and help them go from, $500,000 to millions of dollars. And there's lots of things. So my track record with getting people there is great. for example, there are athletic coaches for Olympians that have never been to the Olympics.
Yeah.
But they can give outside feedback, and that's what I've always been pretty good at, is giving outside feedback to people. And it just came as like, I'd give somebody feedback, they'd get better. Give somebody feedback, they'd get better. They'd make more money. They'd do all these other things. Like, I have been a very successful business owner by most measurements. I mean, is there room to grow? Of course. But like, I've been pretty successful in running my own businesses, but I've not run a salon. And I actually think it gives me a unique superpower to be able to see things outside of being a salon owner and being trapped in my own behaviors. But I think it's just such an important thing that when you're looking at that, you got to look at the track record of the people that you're working with. And have they been there and been successful themselves, or have they gotten success with other people? That's what I'm looking for in order to take feedback from somebody.
Yeah, I always like to think of this is like, I only know this information because one of my best friends was Golden Glove champion in Canada, and he got me hooked on boxing and MMA.
Oh,
yeah, good old Jack Nosgard. I think you've met him.
I didn't know that about Jack.
Oh yeah, you don't want to get in a tussle with that boy.
All right.
Yeah, I went in the ring with him, and that's why I coached. I didn't box, but Muhammad Ali's coach. Was never a boxer, was never in the ring.
Interesting.
And so to your point, because what you do is you give people systems, analysis, and ways that they can grow. You don't have to know how to run a salon to know how to run a successful business.
Yeah, it's my points of observation.
Yeah.
Right. Is I've created systems, and I think the biggest thing is I see patterns, and again, Doug and I see patterns. It's not just me. We see patterns inside salons, and we study salons that are successful. And because we work with so many hundreds of thousands of salons, that we see this all the time, is we see what the struggles are. We have solutions for it. We brainstorm with other salon owners, and we have like literally a network of salon owners who are solving problems for each other every single day. And it's a massively unfair advantage because most people get one coach, right? You meet one person who's supposed to be the savior of your salon as a coach that you hire, and you pay him some astronomical amount of money. And I'm like, okay, cool. That's cool. But what if I said you could have a whole community of people that are rooting for you, pulling for you, pushing for you, and that you get to ask the community how to help you, and they want to help you because they've been helped more than anybody else. And like, that's when it starts to become really fun. And so we're not really a coaching company. We're a mastermind community where hundreds of people can provide coaching for you. And it's weird. People don't get it, man. They always email me like, I hope your coaches are as good as my last coach. And I'm like, they're not. They're better. And it's because they have access to everybody. It's not, they're not solo.
You do sessions inside there. And actually, I stole some of that from my groups.
Steal it, buddy.
I've stolen a lot of your stuff from my groups. But
with permission.
With permission. I always ask.
With permission.
But you have these things where people, it's not just you teaching or your team teaching.
Yeah.
You have things that you do, and you give them topics, and then they collaborate at their tables.
Yeah.
And if you can imagine one person if you've got 8 to 10 people at a table, and everybody's sharing what worked for them, and they pick a certain number of topics that they have time for, and everybody brainstorms on it. That information came from everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, imagine this, Chris. Imagine you had a knee issue that you were dealing with, and you went to go see a doctor. And most people deal in this methodology. I go to the doctor, and that doctor tells me what's wrong with my knee because they're supposed to be really, really smart, and I pay for the best doctors. Well, what if there was another scenario? What if you went in to go see a team of doctors, and there was 20 of those doctors that all asked you questions and examined what was going on, and then they all consulted with each other, argued with each other, and duked it out to give you the best solutions possible for your knee? Is it more possible that you'd get the perfect solution from that one doctor?
Yeah.
Or do you think somewhere in that sea of that 20 other doctors' opinions, there might be the exact right thing? That's why they say, get a second opinion, right? We are not in a day and age anymore where information is not abundant. There's an abundance of information everywhere. So it's not just, do you know the one answer? There are multiple answers to solve the problem, and that there might be 7 solutions. One might be surgery. One might be changing your diet plan. And you might be like, hey, I'd rather try that diet plan thing first before I decide to cut myself open.
Yeah.
And so that's how it works. Is like we operate off this cooperative environment. We call it co-opetition, right? Where they're kind of in competition with each other because they want to be better, but in a way that they all get better at the same time because they're in semi-competition, but they're cooperative.
I love that. I'm writing that down right now.
Co-opetition.
Co-opetition.
You got it, man.
Jason, and you've done a lot of things right, and we've talked about some of this stuff before.
I've also done a lot of things wrong. I just
Exactly.
want to clarify. I will outmistake anybody. Anytime.
Well, but see, that's where some of your growth comes from, though, and that's
all of the growth comes from all of it.
Can you? What are I mean, everybody always thinks that they see you at these presentations. They come up to you later, whether it's 1 or 5 years later, and they say, Jason, you changed my life. But do you ever have those days where you just don't want to get, Mom, can I just sleep? I don't want to go to school today.
Just to be clear, just to help you out with that analogy a little further, I used to call in sick to school all the time. If I had a test, just being really honest.
Yeah.
If there was a test that I didn't study for or something like that, I was the worst sick faker on planet Earth.
Oh, I'll give you one. What I used to do is I'd get up, I'd go on the couch, I'd sleep on the couch, I'd get the hot water bottle, I'd put it under the pillow, and I'd get the thermometer.
I'm so hot.
Yeah, I put my thermometer and I'd put it on the, put it in my tongue. The mom would pull it out and it would be like 160.
She's like, oh, geez, you really are not
I think
doing
she saw, okay, yeah, whatever. But she always played along with me.
That's nice
your points. I want it like rough setbacks, rough points that you've had.
Bro, I've had a lot. This is going to sound weird. I don't do very well at looking backwards on rough points in my life.
Yeah.
I really don't. I have a hard time doing it. And it's good. I'm like the ultimate spin master, right? I really am.
Mm-hmm.
But rough points, you mean in business and life? Like, how deep do you want to go here?
Well,
man?
And let me tell you the purpose. And I think that I like to ask everybody some of this because there's one thing that really bothers me with podcasts, interviews, etc., particularly the ones that are 7 minutes long on TV and they have to sell something.
This has only been 7 minutes, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think that's all it's felt like.
7.5, 8 minutes?
But the reality is that people listen to it. If I'm watching Tom Hanks on TV or in an interview and all they do is talk about what went right and the breaks that they got and the big things. I don't feel that I can get that. So, to me, I always think if somebody that's a young kid out there listening, and I hate that other question, what advice would you give to people starting off? But I think that if they can hear and see
all the failures?
That we've had failures and could have been catastrophic to our business. And yet we
I have
proceed.
had catastrophic business failures. Look, first of all, the High Performance Salon Academy, I think, is my 9th business. I think this is really important to know. It's my 9th business. I started a lot of businesses that did okay, and there's cool success stories from like their first thing. But like being really honest, like the first business I ever really started was a electric scooter company. Just 20 years too early, just to be clear.
Yeah.
Like now people are like, oh, electric scooters, you must have made some really good money. I'm like, no. I did it in 2001 before anybody thought that was cool.
Yeah.
Right? Like I did some of that. I started a Bluetooth. You remember I was around for this. I did Bluetooth headwear, which was before Bluetooth was really as big of a thing as it is now. And like, I did a lot of things too early where I made some money real quick and then lost a bunch of money. I was an eBay seller in 2001. Whatever year that was, like really, really early. I was early eBay and made like 40 grand my first month and then lost my butt the next month. Like I've done a lot of things and, I've spent a lot of money on lessons. Yeah. I shelled out, $150,000 to start a franchise that the franchise doesn't exist anymore. I started a cold weather clothing brand and borrowed $200,000 from friends and didn't get to pay it back to them because I lost it all. I have done some things that have been really, really hard. And it's so crazy to think like, and I mean, raise money from friends was like, I literally got money from good friends of mine that trusted me with, money that were like, hey, I hope this works. I'm like, me too. And it didn't. And I had to call them back and be like, sorry, here's like, I think I gave them, like, felt so bad. I gave them back like a check for like $4 grand. I'm like, here, I have a little bit of money left. Just take some, And all of those things taught me to be who I am today. And it's crazy because I definitely have the good stories on the other side is like, learning to import and export. Man, that made my life so valuable. And now to this day, I import and export board games for the High Performance Salon Academy. I do all kinds of stuff that like, I wouldn't have been able to do without those experiences. And by the way, all those people are still good friends of mine. And people are like, what the hell? How could you do that? Those are people who are good friends of mine. I had an app development company. I don't know if you remember when I had Cusick, right? I spent thousands and thousands of dollars trying to keep that thing going. And I wish it still existed because I still want it, like I still do. But it's one of those things that like that didn't make it either. And so, I've crashed about 8 other businesses, about 6 other partnerships that didn't work out. And like we're all still friends. Like I would just say, I don't burn any bridges. There's very few bridges I've burnt in any direction. I might have 1 or 2 that I accidentally burnt down. But for the most part, I retain all those relationships and they've turned into amazing relationships going forward. But I do think, I was working with Robert Kiyosaki for a lot of years, and some people hate him, some people love him, but he said something that always will stay with me. Is he said, "I won't work with somebody unless they've already lost $1 million."
Oh, wow.
Like, yeah, I was on stage, and he's like, "You have to have already lost $1 million." And so I started totaling up all my losses. I was like, okay, well, I lost $150,000 there and $200,000 there. I'm doing the math, and I'm like, it's so stupid. I literally was like, sorry, Robert, I've only lost 750. And he's like, I'll make an exception.
Yeah.
He was like, 750 is okay, 750. Yeah. But it was just but it was so stupid, right? But like, it was just a funny thing to realize that like, until you've had a few knocks, you don't know what it's like to rebuild. And you're not really trustworthy, because unless you've recovered from something very difficult, I don't know how you'll respond when something bad happens. You might just panic and flip out and put your head between your legs and run away. Yeah. But if I know you've come back from something that was really challenging, and I mean, for crying out loud, man, my wife and I had a hard pregnancy. We had hard childbirth with both of our kids. I mean, I was on stage at Symposium 2 days after my son was born in the NICU for 17 days. He was in the ER in the NICU, and it was like that stuff was traumatic. But like, that's made me who I am. Yeah. It made my son who he is. And so I always have the positive story on the other side. But man, oh man, I just talked to a friend of mine recently. He's like, Jason, your life's been so good. You don't know what it's like. And I was like, do you want me to unpack it? I just don't talk about it very often. And he said, Jason, it makes you more relatable, because I didn't know you had all that stuff. I thought your life was just perfect. I'm like, dog, my life is not perfect. I wish I could say that, but it's not. It's been complicated. I just choose to do something different with it.
Yeah. You said a magic word there, which was recover.
Oh, I thought it was abracadabra or something.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe you had it in there. It was subliminal, but I had that psychic mind meld with you.
What was the word again? I'm sorry.
You said recover. It's how recover. You recover from
What's
it.
What's your turnaround?
So we see so many people that they do something, it fails, and it doesn't mean you're a failure. It just means that thing failed.
Yes.
And you recovered from it. You learned from it. You move on, whether it's in the same thing moving forward. It could be your salon and it's failing. It's not making money. But if you just sit back and watch, then all it's going to do is continue to fester. You're going to lose your staff, and people go away. I'm making it very simple, and it's not anybody's fault except that nobody changed.
So I had a theater teacher. And I will blame all of my improv stuff and bad jokes and all that stuff on him. His name was Giles Turner. He was my high school theater teacher and improv coach, my first improv coach, and I went on to a bunch of other stuff. But he taught me a couple really important lessons, mainly the ability to recover. The improv comedy, the whole thing is a mistake. Yeah. The entire show is a mistake. Like, mistakes are the funniest damn part when you when you see somebody make a mistake and you're like, Like, that's why we love watching Saturday Night Live. You're like, you want to see the characters crack. You want to see the mistakes are funny as hell, right? So learning how to make mistakes and make fun of yourself and do all those things, like, we take great joy in that. But in life and in business, sometimes we don't ever celebrate our mistakes, right? We think that, like, we learn in school that mistakes aren't okay and that we should all get things perfect and the red tape's going to come out and, like, don't make mistakes because then you'll fail on the test. I am really good at making mistakes. Maybe from improv class, maybe from other things I've done, or just I got a thick skin. But like, I really think that taught me some massive life lessons. But Giles Turner, full credit to Giles Turner on this. I'll never forget this for the rest of my life. When I was 16 years old, I learned this. He said, if you ever are on stage and you make a mistake, make it so big, they will think it's part of the show. Yeah. And like, how profound is that? Yeah. If you make a mistake, make it so, he said, like, if you're walking across stage and you trip, do a damn somersault and pop up and go, ta-da! Mm-hmm. Like, literally, that was the example he gave. And he said, if you make a mistake in real time, and I learned how to do, live theater. So that's why, like, I don't care. Give me no prep time. I'm ready. I'm ready to go. Let's go. Yep. And so for me, that mistake can sometimes be the greatest success, and it can make the show better, or at least it covers it up and you can keep going and it doesn't throw you off. And so I think so many people, and that's like, where do I get my energy? Because I am totally cool making a mistake, and I'll make it so big, everybody assumes it's part of the damn show. Yeah. You kind of joked about it earlier. You're like, that wasn't even planned. And I'm like, I know, it was completely not planned. It was just, I made a mistake and we made it big enough that it was just part of the thing. Or I made a joke, and like, if it lands or doesn't land, it doesn't matter because I'm just rolling with it. Yeah. I'm just rolling with the mistakes because the mistakes are just as good. And let me be really clear. Who the hell is the judge if that's a mistake or not? Who?
Yeah.
Right? There's this old, I don't know, it's a Chinese, Japanese like proverb or something. I'm probably gonna screw it all up, but I'll do my best. Is this farmer has these soldiers come and knock on his door, and they go, "Hey, we're recruiting for the army." Maybe you've heard me say this, right? The farmer is recruiting for these soldiers are recruiting for the army, and they say, I already screwed it up. I told the punchline at the end. Damn it! Hold on. So sorry. Rewind back. See what happens?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so as all of these things happen, sorry, I got to the punchline first. But anyway, this farmer one day goes outside, and there's a horse outside. And he goes, "Well, what the heck is this horse?" And they go, "I don't know. You must have been given a horse. Like, congratulations, you got this horse." And he goes, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing." So his kid gets on the horse and rides around, and the kid falls off the horse and he breaks his arm. And the dad says, like, "Well, hey, the neighbors all congratulate him." Or I'm screwing up this whole story. This is totally useless. I'm gonna scrap. I'm gonna call it a redo. How entertaining is it for me to get these? Anyway, the short version of this entire story is that every time something happens to this farmer and this kid, the dad says, "I don't know if it's good or bad," and this kid like breaks his arm. "I don't know if that's good or bad. We'll see." And then he does this other stuff, and he goes, "I don't know if it's good or bad. We'll see. I don't know if it's good or bad. We'll see." And then at the end of the story, sorry, I screwed the whole thing up. We get to the end of the story, and these people come and knock on the guy's door, and they're like, "Hey, we're here to take your son, and he's got a broken arm, and he can't go to the military and get deployed." And they're like, "Well, see, I don't know if that's good or bad." Because every single thing, you don't know what's behind it. And sorry for my butchered story, but there you go.
Fine.
You got a real life mistake out of me right there 5 times in a row. But the idea is that you don't know if that's good or bad. What if this computer crashed and we couldn't do the podcast today? I don't know if that's good or bad. Maybe it's the best thing that happened to me. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's not up for me to decide. And so if you think about it for just a second, you're the only one making the call whether that's good or bad. And going back to the very beginning of the show, if you get to choose if it's good or bad, why not just choose it's good?
Yeah. Yeah.
The best thing that ever happened to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your choice.
Wow. You know, every week I learn from you, and even when I'm hosting this, I learn from you. But I'm going to go to that segment now. This is our rapid fire segment. I've got a couple things. So it's just rapid fire. I'm going to throw this stuff out to you. 1-2 words that come to your brain.
People making me sweat on this.
Okay, good.
Go for it. Hope I don't make a mistake.
Just tell the joke again. Okay, what turns you on in the creative process?
Oh, I thought you just meant what turns me on. And I thought this would go really weird turn.
That's a different video.
Creative process, getting to perform and letting people see it.
Good. What stifles it?
Doing it by myself.
What's an event or show that you loved? Just the first one. There's many, but what's the first one that comes to your mind?
One of the ones that had the most profound impact on me as a person, I don't know why it was so good and why I got it, was I saw the original Broadway cast of Rent in New York. You were in New York. I don't know if you ever went and saw the Rent show when it was playing, but I saw that show and it was one of the most beautiful performances I'd ever seen. The cast was just incredible, and it just changed me as a person. Not because of the storyline or the politics or any of the other stuff. It was just like they were freaking in love with performing it, and it was just one of the biggest shows on Broadway, and it was just awesome. I'm getting teary just thinking about it because it was such a good show.
A thing in life that you dislike the most.
That I dislike the most?
That you dislike the most.
Oh, shit. I really don't not like a lot of things. Things that I dislike the most. Oh, that I have no control over how fast I can make things happen.
And what do you love the most in life?
That every day is a surprise. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know. Like anything could happen the next day. I have no clue.
Proudest moment in your life?
Besides this podcast, clearly?
Besides this podcast, I know.
Besides this podcast. Becoming a dad. Easy.
Thing that you dislike the most about the hair industry?
The thing I dislike the most about the hair industry, there's so many options. No, I'm just kidding. I was going to say, I was going to say egos initially. I was going to say some of those things can kind of get in the way. But honestly, the thing I dislike about it is that people are willing to stand for being seen as second-class citizens.
Wow.
Like, you don't get what you ask for, you get what you tolerate.
Yeah.
And I think people tolerate it, and instead of learning how to make it better, they just get angry at people. And I think there's a better way than just being angry at people. They don't respect you. I think you've got to earn respect from others. And so to me, what frustrates me is people don't want to learn how to earn people's respect. They just demand it.
Yeah. a person that you admire the most.
My dad. He was never angry.
Wow.
I rarely saw him angry, and I think it's because he grew up in a really angry household, and he was like, I'm not going to be that. And again, you have to become, like, he came from a really bad household. Both of his parents died as alcoholics and crazy accidents and all kinds of other things. He grew up in a really terrible household, and that's what made him not an angry father.
Wow. That's because it's usually a continuation. So that's amazing that he chose. That's
cycle.
Again a choice, isn't it?
Yeah, 100% every day.
A person you wish you could meet, dead, alive, past, future, whatever.
That's a good question. I never know how to answer that one. I've heard that one before, and I never know how to answer it. Person I wish I could meet. I don't know, man. That's such a tough question. Who do I wish I could meet? I don't know. I guess it's probably just because I've been in business so long. Like, I'd love to meet like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos. Not because I think they're incredible human beings or anything, but just because I just want to see, like, there's something powerful about watching people and observing them without seeing what they want to show you.
Yeah.
We get to see people, like, even like this, like we're in, I'm seeing your ego of Chris. I'm not really just watching what happens when nobody's looking, and I want to see how those people act when nobody's around and cameras aren't there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you'll see me as soon as you see a drink in my hand. Something that people don't know about you. I'm hoping you're going to say the one that I think you might say.
Well, that's the one I always say, so people always know it, and nobody ever cares. But what do people not know about me? The coolest one that I usually say is I used to be a ballroom dance instructor. That's the one that I normally say. I used to be a ballroom dance instructor. I used to play the saxophone, for those of you who don't know. And what else could I tell you? I grew up in a very small town called Volcano.
Wow.
Which I think is cool.
That's what? You grew up in a town named Volcano.
It's pretty rad.
And you're also a firewalker instructor.
That's true. I am also a certified firewalking instructor. I take ice baths. There's a lot of cool stuff, but I usually talk about them. I talk about most of that stuff pretty often.
I find that interesting that you came from a town named Volcano.
I should work that into my firewalk play.
Yeah, there you go.
We'll walk on hot lava. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, a month off. Where would you go? What would you do?
I have a giant list. I have a list of about 75 places I haven't been yet, and I just would go to the next one on the list. Currently, the next one on the list is Ireland with my family.
Oh, nice. Something that terrifies you.
It's so funny. I don't have a lot that terrifies me.
Yeah.
Like, I know that's crazy.
I know you're like my son, you're an adrenaline junkie. So.
Well, I was trying to think of like profound things, like not getting to see my kids grow up, but I'm like, nope, I'm totally cool with that. Like, I'm cool. I really am. I just know that whatever was supposed to happen was supposed to happen. And I'm not afraid of many things. Like, this sounds weird, and I know it's probably too long for this question, but like, somebody asked me like if I'm afraid of dying, and I was like, I'm not afraid of death at all, man. And I don't mean it as like an adrenaline junkie. I just don't care if I die. I just mean like, I know that I've been living a pretty awesome life, and I've lived an incredible life that I think other people would be excited to live. So I'm not scared of very much. And to be honest, man, nothing really terrifies me at that core level. I think sometimes I get worried about things, but like, it's crazy to even say that to you, Chris, is that I get more worried than I get terrified. Terrified doesn't get me.
Yeah. Mine in there is really simple. I'm freaking terrified of spiders. I'm an arachnophobe. You see, like, you'll never. I'll be the guy on the TikTok video when you see a spider in the room, and I'm freaking out, jumping up in the room while trying to look cool at the same time.
Yeah, no, good, man.
Your favorite curse word?
Curse word? Oh man, my favorite one is probably the F word. It's the most functional of all of them.
Yeah, because it could be anything, a verb, a noun, anything,
it's
right?
It's the best. It's the best.
Favorite comfort food?
Oh dang. Jalapeno brownies with a scoop of ice cream on top.
What?
Yeah, I'll make you some.
Jalapeno
brownies.
Brownies with the seeds in them?
No, with a scoop of ice cream on top.
No, but when you put the jalapenos in the brownie.
No. No seeds. You don't need any seeds. Just
I've had
jalapeno.
I've had jalapeno jelly before, and that's really good.
Jalapeno brownies will change your life.
Oh, well, there's another kind of brownie that will change your life too, but we'll leave that alone for now.
It will alter your reality briefly.
Something in our industry, and I mean your industry is broad, because it's not just hair.
Coaching, training, hair.
Yeah,
whatever.
but something that you haven't done before, but you had a white paper, and this is a gig you want to do. What is it?
I just got a phone call yesterday, so let's talk about that. I just got a call yesterday from somebody who books gigs in Dubai.
Yeah.
And he was like, hey, we do these big events all over Saudi Arabia, and we're interested. I think I still would love to be able to do more gigs internationally. That's I love it. It's super cool. I was supposed to do part of my failure story that I could tell you is I was supposed to do this big gig in Peru and go have 3,000 people down there, and my wife ended up in the hospital and we couldn't go. And I just love cool stuff like that. I think being able to be honestly, that's the epitome of being an incredible speaker in my mind, is being paid to go to other countries and speak places, which I know you've done a lot. Honestly, that's why one of the big reasons why I do this is because it opens up international opportunity for me, and there's nothing like changing people in other countries to change your perspective.
Thank you. If you had one thing you could do over in your life.
No do-overs.
No do-overs.
No do-overs. I just say that as not I'm not going to answer. I just mean there's nothing I would do over. Yeah. I am who I am this day because of everything that happened to me. Yeah. I wouldn't change it.
Tomorrow, you couldn't do what you're doing now. You couldn't teach, you couldn't coach, you couldn't do anything. What would you do?
Oh, Jesus. If I couldn't do what I'm doing right now. Oh, man. It's so hard. If I couldn't do what I was doing right now, what would I do? I don't know. It depends on if I had money or if I was just having to pick a new career and I couldn't do any of this other stuff. Dang, I'm stalling for an answer for you. That one really got me. I'd probably just spend a lot of time with my family if I couldn't do it, but I'd have to have some sort of money to support it, and I don't know what I would do. I'd spend time with my family.
There you go.
That's final answer.
Final answer. No one needs. I'm not calling a friend.
Yeah, that's it.
The sort of the second last question. This one's a little more in depth, and then at the very end, I want people to know where they can get a hold of you.
Sure.
But if you could have one wish for our industry that was not the wish you had before, and what you talked about before, about their
not
image,
my whole mission and purpose. That's fine.
What if you could have one wish? Or talk more about it. What would that wish be and why? If it is about,
it is that. But okay. What would the one wish be for the industry? I think there's some beauty in why people. This industry transforms more lives than we'll ever know. It really does. And I think going back to why I was chosen this industry is yes, I've been known to transform a life or two. And I think hairdressers have this magic ability. And I say hairdressers, massage therapists, estheticians, nail tech, everybody, right? You make people feel on the outside in a way that helps them feel good on the inside. Mm-hmm. And I think it's beauty should be from the inside out. And I'm but sometimes people can feel beautiful on the inside and they don't feel it on the outside. And I think that this industry gives such a gift to so many people. I guess I wish that people, if I could wish for something, is that I guess I wish that people would understand their value in what they give others and be okay owning that as their own. I think that so many people in the industry undervalue themselves and feel small and all of those things. And I think the only taste of that I've ever gotten in my life was during COVID, and the number one search on Google was when does my salon reopen? And I was getting interviewed on TV shows and things, and the newscasters are I can't function without going to get my stylist to cut my hair. And I'm man, everybody missed their stylist more than anybody else, because you help give people a vision of themselves that they can't create by themselves. Mm-hmm. I'm deadly afraid of cutting my own hair. I'm deathly afraid of it. I'm deathly afraid of dressing myself and I can put some clothes on, but I'm just saying to make myself look the way I need to look. It's your whole identity. Yeah. And when you realize that identity is one of the most powerful things that anybody will ever learn to identify in their life is how they identify and who they are and what their outward appearance is. And when you realize that's one of the most important things that exists on planet Earth is how they let other people perceive them, it'll just give you more power than you've ever felt. And I wish people would understand that.
Absolutely. Jason, thank you firstly, but before we go,
dude.
I would be remiss, and yes, I did use the word remiss.
Remiss.
If I didn't, where can people go to get Profitable Salon Owner?
Yeah. Well, first of all, if you're not a salon owner, you're welcome to read it. But I would highly recommend if you're a salon owner, you probably should read the book. And if you want to be profitable, if you're not interested in profitability, like no big deal.
Oh yeah, why would we want to make money?
Yeah, look, I'm not doing it as a money grab. You can get it for free. Send me a message on Facebook or Instagram. I'll give you a copy of the book for free. I'll send you the PDF. I'll just send it right to you. But if you do prefer like actually touching paper, which is old school, and I totally appreciate that, you can go on to Amazon. I think you might have heard of them. They're a store. I think they have a couple of locations now. Amazon, and they might even drop off at your door. And coming soon, we have the audio book that should be available on Audible very soon. I just spent hours and hours in the studio recording it. So that's coming up on Audible, and you can hear me. If you like to listen to this long drawn out of me talking and you want to hear more, it'll be available on Audible.
I'm getting that too. And if people want to book you for something, if they want to know more about you and your business and High Performance Salon Academy, where do they go? What do they do?
Just send me a message. Find me on social media at Jason Everett, almost every place except for Facebook. You have to put up Mr. Jason Everett, which is very official. But
which I called you at the beginning.
You did. You said Mr. Jason Everett. But yeah, just find me on social media, Facebook, Instagram, whatever. Look up the High Performance Salon Academy. Look up Jason Everett. You'll find me somewhere. And if not, hopefully you can just send me a DM or find somebody or message Chris and be like, hey, where the hell's Jason?
Exactly.
You'll be able to find me. And I hope I served you a little bit today. I always believe that if I can serve people well here and you want to come back for more, like I said, hopefully it's a profitable addiction where the more we hang out, the more money I make you.
Yeah. Jason, I just want to say thank you on several levels. Just number one,
always
when you talk about profitability, et cetera, you've been paramount in our business. And so I'm a true testament of the fact of what you do works. And
Thanks,
you give your time up so easily to everybody because you want to change lives. So I just want to say thank you on behalf of our listeners and watchers. Thank you so much for just being a part of this. I think that you profoundly do, whether you do it in 1 word, 10 words, but you always are so eloquent and great at stories and helping people to understand how simple things could be. So Jason, thank you so much.
I appreciate it, dude. Thanks for doing the show. You should do more of it. These are really good. Well done, sir.
Thank you. Cheers.
Hell yeah.